Hey everybody, how you doing? Cool. I want to take you on a little bit of a musical journey. Maybe we'll do the journey part without the reverb? Good. All right. We'll get to the reverb later. So, it all happened a very long time ago when I was in second grade and the phone rang at my house. And it was my second grade teacher calling up my parents and talking to my mother and saying, Jordan is playing the piano really beautifully in the classroom. To which my mother said, well, I think you're calling the wrong household because Jordan doesn't play the piano. And she was like, no, he's playing the piano and he's playing really nicely. He's accompanying the kids in the songs and he's just having a nice time playing the piano. And after my mother got convinced that indeed I was starting to play the piano, she went out that week basically and bought a very nice baby grand, it was called an SD piano, and I started taking lessons. And I started with one of these guys who's like the kind of teacher, kind of a jazzer that comes around to the house, to teach you for a half an hour and then, go along his way. So he came to my house and he came with a little book, a little red book. Some of you probably remember it. And the first song in the book was this one. Very exciting song. But when it came back the next week, I think I played it a little bit more like this. So the teacher did a little dance of joy, and he quickly decided to discard the book and not teach me how to read notes, but teach me how to read chords, which was actually pretty helpful because I used to play all these songs. My mother used to bring home music from Broadway shows and films and put the guitar music in front of me with just like the lead sheet and just chords, and I would play it. And I was really enjoying myself. It was all going very well. It was a lot of fun. Until one day, some friends came over and heard me playing and said to my mom, he plays really well. You should probably think about getting him some more serious lessons. So she knew this woman whose name was Magda. And Magda was a Hungarian woman, very passionate, very dramatic and intense. And Magda's story was that she had a son who went to the Juilliard school and went to the college and was training to be a classical pianist, but he left the college to join Guy Lombardo's band. Now, that didn't sit very well with Magda, who was, a serious classical musician herself and wanted her son to be a concert pianist. So when she found me, she said, okay, this is the one. This kid is gonna stay on the classical path, gonna get him into Juilliard, and that's what it is. Well, we all know what happened to that idea. Didn't quite work out the way she planned, but luckily, she's not around anymore, so she can't feel the pain of my particular direction choice. But she was one of these teachers that if I could be playing a scale and hit a wrong note, such as that, she'd be very upset. She'd give me literally a little kick in the leg or slap on the hand. It was slightly unpleasant, but it whipped me into shape. And actually, I did audition for the Juilliard School when I was 9 years old, and I got in. And so the first part of the mission was accomplished. So then I got a teacher whose name was Catherine Parker, and Catherine Parker was a assistant to a woman named Rosina Levine, who was probably one of the most famous piano teachers of the last 125 years. So she was pretty serious. So she assigned me this Bach prelude, a lovely piece, but when I came back to her, I wanted to show her how I could improvise on it. She didn't want to know anything about that. But I was confused because I thought it was that was what I was used to. And she said, no, you cannot do that when you study here at Juilliard. No improvisation when you're taking the lessons. So I would take my boogie and my blues down the hallway, and I'd be like jamming for the other kids at school, maybe smiling, but it was very much not allowed. far from the teacher's view as possible. I'd get my blues, my boogie, and whatever the hell else came into my mind out, and then I'd study very hard and do all the classical stuff as well. And I managed to kind of create a balance to where it worked and the teacher was happy and I could stay inspired and do what I kind of needed to do. So it really does start with Bach, and this is kind of like the Bach to rock show of mine in a slightly condensed version, but it started with Bach, and I'm going to play some Bach for you right now. Do you guys dig Bach? Yeah, he's a cool composer. This is the Partita number 5 in G major. You know, some people ask me like how I practice, something just made me think of this, how I practice and how we prepare for playing in concerts when there's nerves involved or anything. And I tell my own story, which is that, you know, I practice things slow, to a metronome, I practice things really fast, I'll practice with the lights off, I'll do all kinds of things to kind of get ready for any particular situation. I'll tell Mike Mangini's story that he told me. He practices with his drumsticks that are wet, he'll put the drums in reverse, he'll do, you know, anything crazy, so whatever comes up, he can do it. But one thing I didn't prepare for, and now I'm going to add to my list, I'm going to practice, I'm going to get something that makes the whole room kind of like just move, and try to stay focused while I do it, because it's a whole nother element. But obviously it's an important one, and I'm, you know, I didn't work that way, but it's gonna happen anyway. So, all right. So one day at Juilliard, some advertising people come into the school, and they're actually looking for a young person who would look very showy and dramatic, so they could put him in their television commercial. And the principal of Juilliard thought of me, because in those days, you got a picture, you got to stretch your imagination with this one. I had very long hair, very wavy. It wasn't all here, it was actually up here. And I was very dramatic. And so they told me that I should go to this commercial audition to try out to do the job. So when I walked in the room in New York City, there were about 75 people, 75 kids there to audition. 73, I think, were there that were just child actors, and there were 2 from Juilliard, me and somebody else. But I really was very dramatic, and when I went into my audition, this is what I played. Now, you definitely have to use the imagination. Imagine the hair flying, but this is how the audition went. like that. So instead of waiting to call me, they just said to me right there, "Okay, kid, you got the job." So I think they figured they would save money because they didn't need to hire a pianist to like dub the track, that I could do it myself. And sure enough, that's what happened. So it was very exciting. One day I spent at this place called Media Sound in New York City. It's not there anymore. And I recorded the track. And the next day I went to the Plaza Grand Ballroom, which is this, amazing hotel in New York City. They had a 9-foot piano. It was amazing. And I was filming this Band-Aid commercial. So again, you picture the Band-Aid on my finger, right? First I'll play you the 30-second arrangement of this Grieg thing that I played, and then I'll tell you what happened. This was it. So that's what I played. And I played it about 30 times or more. The reason I played it so many times is because there was a Band-Aid on my finger. It was one of these Johnson & Johnson's clear strips. And the camera, when I did the glissando down, was literally right here. And every time I hit the last note, it would fall off my finger. And I'm sitting there thinking, man, this product is not quite ready for the market, is it? Meanwhile, making a lot of money, so you keep your mouth shut. As a kid, I understood that parameter. But the 30th time, I did the thing, and it stayed on my finger. And then sent myself to music summer camp on the money a few times, and it was all great. I never saw the product for like years. I didn't see it, but now if you go look in the store, it's there. So I guess it took a little while to refine it. So a little bit further down the road, I was probably like 16 or 17 years old, and some friends, knew I was really into the classical stuff and very serious about it. But they wanted to turn me on to some other music. That was kind of their mission to, bring some other influences into my life. And so they started slowly to turn me on to Genesis and Yes and all these things. I was like, wow, what's that? That sounds pretty cool. So one day a friend of mine came to my house with the Charkis album and played it for me, and it really hit me. I kept listening to it over and over again because I was familiar with these suspended chords, that stuff, and I was writing some stuff a little bit similar to that, but what really got me was the intense sound of the organ and the synthesizer, and I was like, wow, you can play keyboards and have that kind of power? That's amazing. So if you're not familiar with Charkis, which all of you are, I'm sure, but I'll play a little bit of it for you on the piano. So this is, this is something that really helped to kind of steer me off into the path that I'm in right now. This is it. Thank you so much. That's the piece that really changed things for me. And since there's a small vocal involved in the next one, I'm going to have a sip of water. I have a lot of sympathy for all the singers out there. It's not the easiest thing to do. Okay. So with all these influences, the progressive rock music was so important to me. And if somebody asks me today, out of all the things that I do, of which I do a lot of different kinds of music, I always tell them that my favorite kind of music is progressive rock. Even more so than like the metal stuff. And people see me in Dream Theater, oh, you must love metal. I'm like, yeah, I like it, but I really love progressive rock. So these next tunes I'm going to play are a medley of some of my very favorite progressive rock songs, which I'm sure you'll all know. Said the straight man to the late man, where have you been? Well, I've been here and I've been there and I've been in between. I talk to the wind, my words are all carried away. I talk to the wind, the wind does not hear. The wind, it cannot hear. I'm on the outside, looking inside. What do I see? Much confusion, disillusion all around me. I talk to the wind, my words are all carried away. I talk to the wind, the wind does not hear. The wind, it cannot hear. Those are some cool songs. So, so at this point, there was a lot of discussion going on. I was, turning 18 years old, and it was time for me to graduate from the Juilliard Pre-College. I had been there from the age of 9, right? And so all the teachers and the parents around me, they were all like, yeah, you're interested in these other things, but you have to stay on the classical path. You're going to be a concert pianist. It's all going to be good. And so with all the pressure from teachers and parents and all that kind of stuff, I did prepare an audition, and because at every level of Juilliard, you have to like re-audition. So I prepared my audition. I got into the college level of Juilliard. I had, all these tunes floating around my brain at the same time. I had just gotten a mini Moog, which is part of the story, and discovered the pitch wheel, which was a big deal for me as well. And then I had this really, really serious teacher. Her name was Adele Marcus, and she was like the teacher to all the, New York kind of concert pianists in the day. And she assigned me this piece. It's called the Chopin Ballade. It's in G minor, and it's a beautiful piece. It kind of goes like this. So it's about 25 pages long. Goes through all kinds of changes. And I brought it back the first week after practicing it, and I put the music down in front of me, and I was playing the piece, and I got about 5 pages into it. And Adele Marcus came by, and she took the book, and I kind of stopped playing. And she said, "Well, why did you stop?" I said, "Well, I stopped because it's been 1 week, and this is 25 pages long, and I can play it, but I haven't memorized it." And she said, "Well, when you study with Adele Marcus," talking about herself in the third person, "when you study with Adele Marcus, you must memorize things in the first week." And I thought about Keith Emerson, and my mini Moog, and Rick Wakeman and his capes, and all the different other influences that I was experiencing at the time. And I looked at her and I said, "You know what? I'm done. I gotta go." So that was my last lesson. So I left. But of course, in those days, so it ended up good. But I was kind of taught or hypnotized to believe that anybody who was playing rock and roll or jazz or blues or funk or anything like that was like a second-class, lower-type citizen. Don't talk to them. They don't know what they're doing. It's not real music. And really, they had me somewhat hypnotized. But the problem was, I liked all these things. I dug them, but I didn't know who to talk to, because I wasn't supposed to talk to them. And I really, had no way to kind of immediately get out of that kind of mentality. But I found myself en route to Baltimore. There was a love interest there, and had to support myself. So first thing I did was I joined a KISS band that had fire on their speakers and all kinds of crazy stuff in the high school gymnasium, almost blowing up the place. And then we turned into a top 40 rock band. From there, I came to New York. I was offered $50 a week from the producers of Yummy, 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 I Got Love in My Tummy, and Chewy, 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 $50 a week to come into their studio and work with this group called Speedway Boulevard and write music for a record on Epic Records. It was like a major thing. And $50 a week for a young kid to play music all day, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. Not a bad deal, right? So I took the $50 and I sat with them and I made an album. And it came out, and 3 weeks later, they pulled it from the shelves. Why? Not because it was a bad album, because I think these guys, these Chewy, Chewy, Yummy, Yummy guys, had left for Rio. They were in some serious trouble. So, so the Speedway thing was not my ticket to success, so I had to go on from there. So, kind of made my way doing some different things. And found myself actually with a possibility of joining Dream Theater and the Dregs at the same time. It's around the time that Kevin Moore had left Dream Theater. It was after the Awake album, and they needed somebody to fill in. So I went for the audition. I met the guys in Dream Theater, and I thought that they were all very cool, and they showed me some of their music. They pulled me under and take the time, and pick another one, and then also I showed them the song I have called Over the Edge and let them learn some of my stuff. To make a long story short, I ended up joining the Dregs. Why? Why did I say no to Dream Theater at first? Well, there's a bunch of reasons. Not because I didn't really like them and think they were really, really talented, but I didn't really know them, and the Dregs to me were like superstars, Steve Morris and Rod Morgenstein and Jerry Goodman, all these guys. That was like, oh my God, they're my heroes. So I could stay home, kind of tour a little less, join the Dregs, do some other things. My wife and I had a small child, so it made sense at the time. So after meeting the guys in Dream Theater, you know, it was wonderful to meet them. I joined the Dregs, everything was cool. So at some point after that, I got a phone call, and it was somebody representing our dear friend Mike Portnoy, and he says to me, he says, you know, Mike Portnoy wants me to call because he wants you to be part of a supergroup. And I had never heard this term supergroup. I thought, what the hell is a supergroup? Now, of course, there's supergroups everywhere you look. But not to say they're bad, but there are a lot of supergroups. So, yeah, so I thought, wow, okay, so who's in the supergroup? And he said, okay, well, there's Tony Levin and Mike Portnoy, and then it turned out to be John Petrucci as well. So I thought, wow, I can like join John and Mike and make some music, and I didn't really have to join Dream Theater. So I thought that was kind of cool, and I joined the group, and we put out 2 very successful rock instrumental albums. And every day of my life, people say, when are you gonna do the next Liquid Tension album? And, right. So I've been talking to Mike about it, and you know, we all want to do it. It's just a question of time. So sit tight. It very well might happen. No promises, but we're hoping that it does. Anyway, in honor of Liquid Tension, I'm going to play you one of my favorite songs of the albums to play on the piano, which is called Hourglass. So after the Liquid Tension albums were done, the two albums, the last day of recording, you're wondering why I'm playing this strange music now. Part of the reason is because I can't get this mic stand to sit right. Oh, there we go. Cool. But the other reason is because there was a strange vibe in the air. Very last day in the studio, I could tell there was something up with John and Mike, but what it was, I really didn't know. They were concocting some kind of a plan, and they were sitting in a room, and eventually I kind of understood that they wanted to see me in their office. So I walked in and sat down, and they looked a little bit nervous. And Mike started the conversation. He went right into it. He said, Jordan, says, hypothetically speaking, he said, if we asked you to join Dream Theater now, what would you say? And it took me about half a second to say, well, yes, absolutely. So that was the day that I joined Dream Theater, my second chance. Thank you, Mike and John, for that opportunity. Yeah, so now it's been a little over 20 years, maybe more like 21 since I actually joined. When I left Liquid Tension, you know, it was John and Mike and myself and this tall, bald bass player named Tony Levin, who we all know and love. And I thought that walking into Dream Theater was going to be simply a matter of just like, you know, saying goodbye to Tony and saying hello to John Mayung, who's shorter with long hair, and he's Asian. And I really thought that was going to be it. But when I walked in the studio, it was a very different kind of a thing. Of course, Dream Theater, you know, was around already for a while, so they were kind of set in some of the ways that they worked, and I had a lot to learn. But it really opened up my life. It was incredible having the opportunity to travel all around the world and meet so many friends in like every country of the planet Earth, and it's been an amazing experience. And actually, this year we're going to be going out on tour soon, not only presenting our new album, parts of it, Distance Over Time, which is coming out on February 22nd. I think there was a song that was released today, actually, for you guys to hear, called Paralyzed. But we're also going to be playing all of Scenes from a Memory in honor of its 20-year anniversary. So it's an anniversary for me, and it's also for Scenes. So it's very, very exciting. So I'm feeling kind of emotional and all about, you know, my life with Dream Theater and all this stuff. And so I'm going to play for you a medley of some of my favorite Dream Theater songs. you so much, everybody. So let's gonna switch gears just a little bit. And some of you know that I have a company that makes musical instruments for multi-touch devices and all these kind of interesting, cutting-edge things. And I actually brought my iPad here on the cruise, and maybe you saw me jamming a little bit with it here or there. But I'm going to play some of it for you right now. It's actually over there. So here we go. So you can shred on your iPhone too if you dare. So to close it out, I'm going to play a song that's challenging to play as a group, but maybe even more so to play by myself, especially with the waves. But I like to challenge myself, otherwise I wouldn't be in a progressive rock band. That's what it's all about, right? We torture ourselves so we can just get better. So yeah, this song is called The Dance of Eternity. If you're interested to see the arrangement, actually at the merch stand, I'm selling my transcription of it, so you can kind of look at all those notes on the page and try to figure out what the hell they all say. And yeah, this is the Dance of Eternity. Check it out. You guys are doing good. You know what's funny? Before the show, I was having a conversation about how I keep this going while I'm like doing other things. I was trying to explain it. It's really hard because it's definitely not academic. You just kind of have to let go and talk to you guys to keep this happening. Maybe play Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. It's very hard to explain. Anyway, thanks for clapping along. scared to play this one in public because you never know what's going to happen. It's one of the hardest pieces that anyone's ever written. Because you guys are special into Prague, I'm going to play it for you. Are you ready?